Okay, I'll open the meeting, call to order. Have a prayer. I have a Father, thank you for bringing us here tonight. Have Father, help us to be able to have a discussion about the issue that come forth tonight. These and everything else, that in your name, amen.
Amen.
Okay. Approval of tonight's agenda. Been moved by Ms. Anthony, second by Mr. Meester. Any questions? All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Review approval of minute meeting, July 10th, 2024 meeting.
Move to approve.
Moved by Ms. Anthony,
Second.
second by Mr. Meester. Any questions? Okay, approval of claims. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the claim? Get pass them around. And it's $28,199.50.
I didn't see him. I'd like to see him, please.
Okay.
Want to see these? No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Anthony. Second by me. Any questions? All in favor? All right, public comment. Any public comment? Okay. Reports of committee.
Hello, I'm not obviously Judge Collins, I'm Judge McClanahan, and Judge Collins was gone this week, and I asked if I could just appear in his stead. In regards to report, we'll talk about the budget aspect, what it looks like on the agenda. But just for the reports, as you may have heard, the Stephenson County Public Defender Byron Salem served for many years in that position, and due to needing to relocate to assist with some of the elderly family members, he had sent in his notice he was going to be resigning. And so we went through the process of putting out the notification in regards to the vacancy and had about a 3-week application period. And in pursuant to statutes, the head public defender of the department is appointed by the circuit judges in the circuits of which there's the vacancy. And after the application process, attorney Travis Lutz has been selected to be appointed as the new public defender. That's actually going to take effect. There's going to be a swearing in ceremony this Monday. Attorney Lutz has been the second in command, if you will, for several years at least. And he's been with the department for quite a long time before that. And is overall confidence in his abilities and skills to step in and head the department. So that would just be the reports that we have. And I will then defer to everyone else unless there's any questions in regards to that.
I think Travis is a good choice. I really do. What time Monday is this work?
8:40 in courtroom 4.
Okay.
That's the whole circuit that does that.
There's 5 counties in the circuit, and there's 8 circuit judges total on there. But it's, even though it's a Stephenson County appointment, it's on the staff of the circuit judges of the circuit.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're already looking for an additional person
I'd have to,
because he's stepping up, you know.
I'd have to defer to them on my, do you have more information?
Byron's gonna be here for a while.
That is true.
Oh, they're down too.
once Byron leaves, it'll be down too, yeah.
Down to, yeah.
There is gonna be, Attorney Sloan for a couple months is gonna be sticking around in an assistant, role, just kind of helping with the transition, before formally relocating, all. That's, I would highly assume they're gonna be looking for replacements. So,
Thank you.
yes, they've got, just one final thing on that.
Yeah,
They've had good, set in regard to, we've got, 3 attorneys who've been there quite a substantial period of time, and 4 who's also been there, it's familiar. So, they've been able to, during that period of time, handle, you got the felony call, you got the juvenile call, the traffic and misdemeanor call in regards to that. And with those numbers, they've been able to competently and adequately handle that. But, when you're losing, obviously, the chief public defender, even though you have a very good, replacements in regards to that, they're gonna have to figure out what does that look like for the services.
Yeah.
And one way that may come into play, and again, I'll let them report on that because it's their department. But it's like, when you have like sexually violent persons, those are things that have been handled currently by the public defender's office. And I don't know if that's what they're going to continue to do in the future or not. But again, that's getting to their department. So I'll let them update that because it feels appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Public discipline, you just covered that. Probation.
I was gonna say, Ms. McGee is not here this evening. She did send the report in. The only thing I believe that she mentioned when Mr. Bush and I met with her to go over the budget was that there is a new court administrator as Leanne Brandenburg retired. I believe today was her last day.
Ish.
Ish, yeah. So she will update more on that after the new one is introduced to everyone. It's a former probation officer from Lee County.
Yeah. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, sir. You should all have my report in front of you. It's been another busy month. Beyond or outside of our kind of work, there are just kind of 2 interesting things that happened. One, it's Tom Madigan, our first assistant. His son had been selected to play in a baseball exhibition for some college scouts. He left yesterday. He's been gone yesterday and today to go do that. So real excited for him. His son's a pitcher and he's really talented, and we're all cheering for him. Next, our victim witness coordinator is a young woman named Caden. She, when we hired her, was still kind of doing undergrad part-time. She got her bachelor's degree while she was working full-time for us. And next week she starts law school. So she's going to go to law school full-time and work full-time in the state's attorney's office, which we're real proud of her. And there's been a lot of jokes about growing our own because, we still need at least one more attorney. So that's about all the fit that's news to print. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Travis did mention to me, he called me, he wanted to be here tonight, but he had a pre-existing family commitment that he needed to honor. When it came time to his budget, he said that it's a status quo budget with the exception of the COLA, and then there's a supplemental request that he didn't think was going to come up tonight. But with respect to his budget without the supplemental request, it's status quo. So he indicated if it was necessary and anyone had any questions, he would be happy to be available by phone.
Any
So-
questions for Mr. Larson?
A young lady going to law school and working full-time will still have some extra time to fill in various spots here for us.
I don't think she's going to have any extra time at all.
Thank you. Okay. Circuit Clerk.
Good evening. You should all have my report. I did receive the SRL grant, $12,326.84. And then included in that grant, I did get the able to go to the SRL conference in Utah, so I will be going to that next month. Also, this month, we have our circuit clerk conference down in Champaign the end of the month, so I'll be going to that. Courtroom 5. IT is pretty much done. They're working on ceiling tiles now. There was one little snag in the Comcast, but hopefully by the board meeting Nate will have that all fixed. That's all I have unless you have some questions.
Any questions for us? Thank you. Youth diversion fee, it's $4,481.18. You did get a report from RAMP that was included in your packet. Any questions concerning that? If not, we'll move on. Old business, and there's no old business, so we'll go to new business. Review and approval of proposed fiscal 25 budget. Circuit. Oh, review and approval of fiscal.
Gordon Flush.
Oh,
That's not.
that's not on.
It isn't on there?
It's on
It's
my-
It's on, yeah, it's on the one that's posted, yeah.
Approval of an agreement with
Okay, let's
probation.
go with it.
Probation.
Go with it.
I was gonna say, Jenny's gonna be happy with me if I don't present this.
Let's move back. Okay.
So, as most of you are familiar, we have a countywide contract with Gordon Flush. One of their machines their lease has termed. Their plan is to move that machine into the juvenile side of their office, which is across the hallway from the main office, and replace the current lease with this machine that is being proposed. I believe it is an increase of like $29 a month, which she has in her budget to cover. But this will now cover both of the machines under one, as opposed to the old machine that is an outlier from probably close to 15 years ago before the countywide contract with Gordon Flush. It was from Neighborhood Copiers, and that one will be picked up by that company if this is approved, and this will cover both of them. So,
And it's pretty much the same one that the state
Yeah.
attorney.
very similar to the machine the state's attorney got approved a few months back, I
Right.
believe.
Right.
So
Entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Been moved by Mr. Hadley, second by Ms. Anthony. Any questions?
One quick question. How long is these lease for? I forgot. how long they're usually for.
this one, it's a 4-year, 60-month, up right in front of me, 60 months, so 5 year.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. All right, now, review and approval of proposed fiscal year 25 budget. We start with the circuit clerk.
You should have my packet. It's have the circuit clerk one on the top. So 804 is our general line for the circuit clerk. First line item is department head. That is, the second page shows the little notes. I just made it bigger because these are hard to read. So that's the department head resolution. Second line, administrative assistant. Did put in a supplement. I'm asking for 6% COLA instead of the 4%. Third line is deputies. This one has gone up quite a bit. Our union contract is up at the end of November, so I don't know what the raises will be for next year. The last few raises have been $1, so I just based it on $1. And then last year I moved one employee out of stock storage. So when Bonnie became clerk, the general fund, is my understanding, was kind of low. Bonnie had extra funds in some of her 2 accounts, so she said that she would take and absorb employees. Those accounts now are getting lower and lower and lower, and I can't afford to keep paying the employees out of there. So we've added 3 more employees into the general fund line. So it's 11 salaries now. that is on that third line. Overtime did not change, stationery did not change, shredding did not change, photocopies did not change. And then we added service contracts. That is going to be for any IT things that we need or extended warranty. So all the new grant equipment that we got from CTI, I have asked for extended warranties in the grants and have not been granted those. So this is for extended warranty or if other things come up with IT issues. Questions on that one?
So pretty much I'm sorry, can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Pretty much the increase is the 4% COLA is gonna cause of this increase then pretty much. I'm looking at it, we're at 469 last year, we're at 594, but I see an increase about 80,000 in the regular salaries.
It would probably be the 3 salaries that she moved into the general.
Right, and because I'm moving 3 employees out of stock storage and automation into the general fund.
Into this 804.
Yes.
Any other questions?
So that was in the general fund, those salaries were coming out of the general fund previously?
They were.
They were prior to being moved out of the
Yes, so
storage.
they were
So
from
2
one body.
circuit clerks ago
Yeah.
took them out of the general fund when the general fund was really strapped
Okay.
to relieve some pressure on the general fund, absorbed it into one of her fee budgets. But with the court fees being reduced, that budget can no longer support those salaries. So she's requesting to put them back into the general.
I see.
Chairman Bush,
Yeah.
can I recommend some, there's probably gonna be a lot to digest. It's good that we're gonna hear from her tonight. I guess a lot of the committees are laying these over to next month.
Right.
Can we,
I'm not looking for no action tonight. just
Okay.
more of a discussion.
yeah, because I kind of want to digest
Right,
some things and look at,
right.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Just, and I know that this only goes through 6/26, so I know that it's now August. And I don't do math calculations in my head like this, but as of 6/26, it appears that like last year, we budgeted more than we're expending.
That is true, and I think some of these, I discontinued the budget. I guess I'd rather have more in there than not. Like the photocopies, this year I've only spent 136, and that's because I paid like 6 months with the SRL grant for the photocopies, which is $500 and some dollars a month. So that is one reason the photocopy line hasn't hardly get anything spent out of it yet this year. And same with stationery and supplies. I was granted money to spend for orders, carbon orders. So I paid it for it out of the grant.
So if we took which line is it, 804-40300, the regular salaries? I don't know if that's what Casey was looking at.
Is that what you were looking at, or?
No, I'm just looking at the
Okay.
budget as a whole.
Right.
Yeah, that one is.
Because it looks like that for a half a year would come to 261 rather than 320. Is that correct? That were equally distributed across a
Right.
annuum.
And
it
some
would
of
be-
this is when I don't have employees, like, I'm
Down staff,
right.
right?
So then you're not paying for
Gotcha. Okay.
months, and
So you
it
think
kind of
that's,
varies.
so that's what accounts for most of that,
Yeah.
you think? Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. One more
And
question.
then some, like long time people that have retired that higher wage than
Right.
new people coming in.
So so we're looking at full staffing versus not being fully staffed
Correct.
for the last year. Okay, thank you. That makes perfect sense.
Go ahead, Ms. Allen.
Yeah, on the administrator assistant, you got her down to, at 54,325. That will be her 4% increase.
That is with the 6%.
That's with the 6%. I thought that we had to put the 4% in all of these and then it would be a supplement.
I think she has the
I
paperwork.
did the paperwork. It's the first time I've done it, so I've done the paperwork,
Yeah.
but I put the 6% number in there. That might
Okay,
be wrong.
it is wrong. You gotta put,
Okay.
if you could do, call Adrian tomorrow and just say
Yeah.
that you made a mistake and that the
Or she
4,
can adjust
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
yeah, put the 4% in because that's what we had, that's what the board is authorized was 4%. And anything additional to that, we will have to approve, that in a supplement, correct?
It's the personnel request form. And I
Okay,
think, did you pass that out?
Yes.
Yeah, you should have a copy of
Yeah,
that.
it was on the top.
Okay, so that would be the 6%.
Yeah.
Okay, then, okay,
Yes, you did. Some minute, but.
okay.
It's just we don't look at those yet.
Yeah, we haven't-
Okay.
yeah. Anything else?
The next is the jury commission. 807. We're gonna delete the coroner jurors because we haven't had anything in there for multiple years. Circuit jurors stay the same. I think we had stationery, but we haven't had anything in that line. And I added $1,000. When we send out our postcards, Mailworks just started billing my office separately because it's cheaper to do bulk. And that can't go through the general mail, I was told. So I just added a line because I figure we're actually saving money. The line was there, I added $1,000 for the postage. Juror meals still stayed the same, printing stayed the same. Any questions on 807 jury commission?
So there was no printing cost? Looking at the right line?
Printing
Oh, I'm
is
sorry.
1,000. There was none in the stationery and supplies. And I just added 1,000 for postage in that.
I'm looking at the wrong line. I was looking at offsite jury expense. There wasn't any, hasn't been for years.
That was with COVID, and that's probably something we can
Okay.
probably get rid of too, maybe this year or next year.
Was there a budget item for coroner juries in 2024?
No.
No. So that's,
Yeah, we
as
haven't.
it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Can I follow up on the jury coroner thing?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember one time we used to budget, have a lot of jury coroners. Have we talked to the coroner, why we don't have jury coroners I mean, I'm just curious because I remember when I first came on the board, that there was,
Mhm.
back in 2002, there was cases going on,
Yeah.
unless the state law has changed
Yeah.
where they don't have to have those. I'm just curious, because, yeah, I agree it should be taken off, but I'm just curious why he hasn't had any in a long time.
Are those called inquests for any of the attorneys here? Is that what the coroner's inquest, or why would we have a juror for the coroner?
They do have juries to like determine cause of death in some
Yeah.
types of cases. Why they would do that, I have no idea, but that is what they do.
Yeah, I remember years ago, it was all, go back to, Jack, Lemon, he would bring in, call his so-called friends in and, pay them a stipend, and then they would have to determine, the cause of death. It wouldn't be a judge or anything, and just the coroner and the.
My TV viewing serves correct. It's called the coroner's inquest, at least in Britain.
All right, then my next one is, Fund 22, dock storage. The green line technology grant, we added in, I believe it was there in revenue before. And then it was never in an expense line, so we added that at the bottom. And that's just an estimated grant I put in there, 300,000. I'm told it's gonna come out again this year. So that is just in there if it does come out, if I ask for it. Whatever I would be granted is the amount that I would spend. I wouldn't spend anything over. And that grant is always, it's not a match. It's just free money. So if we go down into the expense, the first red line is the salaries that I was talking about, that I'm gonna hopefully be moving into the general fund. So we would be deleting that red line. The green line is the technology grant. Stationery and supplies did not change. Mileage. There's nothing in that line. Employee health insurance would be deleted. HSA would be deleted. Office equipment stayed the same, and lease and maintenance stayed the same. Questions?
I was just gonna say when she's done. Something.
Okay, why is the health insurance deleted?
Because I wouldn't have any employees in this account.
Okay,
It's,
gotcha. And I've always been told we don't budget for grants. Do you know what the grants were for these prior years, or at least 2024? Was it about that $300,000?
it was not. '24 IT grant was $1,073, $264. The first grant was $386,927. I think one reason why we did this, and I don't know if Georgia knows for sure, is we had a revenue line,
Mhm.
but we never had an expense line for it. So like when I wanted to submit bills, I couldn't submit bills, only Adrian could do it because there wasn't a line.
Mhm.
So this, it was kind of at the request of Adrian. He's not here.
I was gonna say, I spoke with her briefly about that, and it was an issue where you have somewhere where you can put the money, but nowhere to pull it out. And if you have a in and out within the fund, it's easier for the department to be able to pay the claims.
I believe that's what I suggested last year. For that reason, like it's.
So again, just to go back to my original question, so that 300,000 that we're, budgeting for this purpose, for this reason, what were those dollars in 2024? In their totality? And you don't need to give it to me right now, but
Yeah.
I'd like to
Okay.
see what they were
Mhm.
for the prior years, just like we would any other
Okay.
line item in the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Georgia?
Just as more information, Mr. Welch responded to my text. So he did say there is a law change. The law changed from a may versus shall on inquest. They still have the option though, if it was deemed necessary. But
Yeah, that's
there
what I
was
figured.
a law change, so.
And my last line item, 25, court automation. And I believe everything would stay the same except for the red we'll be taking out. And that again would be because we would not have employees in this line item.
That would be in Nate's budget or,
No, the employees would go back into the general fund budget.
oh, I see, okay.
Chance, do you know what the total amount of that would be to move over? those 3 employees. And I'm just looking at the history of our general fund. We're looking between 1.6 to 1.3 million at the end of 2021, 2022, 2023, so in between there. So like at this time, without knowing what the end of 2024 will look like, it appears as if the general fund could.
So these are rough numbers. Automation has 2 employees in right now. One is a long time. I might take that back. Newer employees, I would say around 60,000. And then the 1 employee in back storage is a longer employee, around 41,000.
Probably the bigger expense would be the health insurance. That would be
Yeah, but even so, you're looking at what, maybe
100.
no. It's hard.
2 million.
And it's not hard.
You said,
Yeah, so if I get this right, you're just not gonna have no employees anymore in court automation and document storage. They're all gonna be in one.
General fund. Back to how it was years ago.
Kind of makes a little sense, you know. Yeah, so all the insurance is going over, all that too. Okay, yeah.
Unfortunately, with the waivers, no bond, these accounts are not getting the income, the funds that we used to receive.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, your request would be for the 25 budget year for card automation, 50,000? Is that what I'm reading?
No. 40. Under the expenses would be 40.
Oh, I see it, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you have any other questions after tonight, just shoot me an email and try to answer them or other answers.
I guess one more question, follow up on that. You met with Adrian,
Yes.
and how did that conversation go with moving into?
Actually, she was the one, I was a little nervous because I was like, oh, hopefully I moved one last year. I want to move at least 1 or 2. And she was like, oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
She was on board and
The unknown still with what the revenue will look like. Adrian and I talked about it after they met, and she's like, that's what I kind of advised her to do, just because the unknown, we're still seeing the change, and it might make more sense just to keep all of the personnel
Keep all the personnel.
in the general.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay. One more question. Excluding you and the assistant, when you're fully staffed, how many do you have employees when you're fully staffed?
11.
11, and you're not at that mark yet.
We have 10 right now.
Okay, but you budget for 11.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
anything else? Do you have the youth diversion fees?
On what?
You got, okay.
Or do you have it?
No, I did not.
Adrian and I were putting it together.
She probably collects them.
I collect the money, but they spend it.
And I thought she emailed that out. I did not make extra
She did.
of that one. Wait, I did. I passed out copies of that.
Yeah.
We were looking at, what we have in currently, what was not spent or able to be spent because of not having a high enough number as an estimated revenue going into this budget year. So we discussed increasing that. We didn't want to go too high, but we went with 10,000. That would allow a bigger distribution since we went to the once a year and still you know, obviously if the revenues are not that high at the point of distribution, we would not be able to spend it. We did increase that to 10 after some discussion to see where we felt comfortable. So, I think that's pretty much
That's good.
the change with that.
Okay. That it? Something?
I think so.
Any more questions for her? Not, we'll move on. State's attorney.
Thank you. You have my budget in front of you. It represents a status quo budget, with 7 exceptions. The first being my salary, which has changed in accordance with the state mandated pay increase that the county board passed last month. Thank you very much. The next is the ASA line items. That's been increased by the 4% COLA, passed in the, budget policy, as has the next 2 lines, which are the essentially the administrative staff and the victim and witness coordinator. The next line is excess sick days. That was a vestige of our employment policy days. When we had employees, particularly Joe Lenz, who, bless you,
Excuse me.
work so long that, and, you know, not take days off, and he'd have excess sick days and we'd pay him for them, and that's no longer the case. And I know I'm about 4 years too late, but thank you, Georgia, for updating that personnel policy. I know it was a bear, and we have adopted it in our office, and it's very helpful. The next line is the Office on Violence Against Women grant. That was approved by the county board this year. It's 3 years. Each year, the Office on Violence Against Women will give the county $40,000 for us to spend in an attempt to improve our prosecutions in those areas. We're using some of that right now to pay for one of our ASA's salaries. We're intend to use it for training as well, and some investigation and subpoena expenses. We've been somewhat limited in our ability to spend it this year because we didn't have a line item in our budget. You can't spend money that you don't have a line item for, but fortunately or unfortunately, we've been down an attorney virtually the entire year. And so we've been spending some of the excess money in that line item to cover some of the expenses that we hope to eventually spend from the Violence Against Women grant. The only other change is the ARDC dues. The nature of those dues are graduated so that the first year an individual is an attorney, they pay nothing. The second year, they pay typically like $121. And the third or fourth year, they go up to the full dues, which are 380 something. So as our very young office becomes slightly less young, that amount's going up, and that explains the variation in that line item. Other than that, everything is the same as it was last year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do all the salaries reflect full staffing?
We are short 1 assistant state's attorney. We were fully staffed for a couple of months at the beginning of the year, so the math won't be perfect, but for several months now, we've been short.
But this budget will include bringing that ASA.
There is, yeah. I mean, if you took the ASA line item and subtracted $65,000, that's what we're paying for ASAs right now.
Okay.
And the 65 is what we hope to hire someone at.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Judge McClanahan.
Thank you.
So I've got the one page, budget here, it should be in front of you, and there's three things that are highlighted. I'll just notes in regards to, before we get to those three highlighted, on Department 805. It's all status quo in regards to the last budget. You'll see some aspects on there, in the equipment, office equipments, that's some of that Judge House had implemented last year. It hasn't all been spent yet, but it will be, on there. If you look between the sheriff, the clerk's office, public defender's office, state attorney's office, and judicial, there's been a substantial amount of work that's been done in the courthouse. Some of those through grants and those for other things. Like for instance, also if you go into the courtroom, you'll see you don't have the 1970s orange chairs anymore. Those have been replaced. So but again, the 805 is status quo is what the last year's request was. Getting down into 806, these are all court ordered expenses. So when you have individuals who are qualified for the quote offender or otherwise, or qualified for a waiver of fees, some of these come into play here. I would note for like legal guardian ad litem attorney's fees and special defender fees. I think there's special defender fee. There's also a part of the public defender's budget out there that includes that. The public defender's office has kind of prided themselves on trying to not have to use that as much. But there are certain circumstances, particularly when you get into family law cases where, or abuse and neglect cases where you have one mother and there's multiple children, and you've got one mother who qualifies for the public defender's office. You've got a father, one child, a father, another child, and this father, another, and then you have the guardian ad litem. You quickly run through public defenders who can be appointed. And it's in those circumstances where you would have some of the extra appointments. We've used Attorney Coon in the past. There's been other attorneys that we've used in those circumstances. The reason that we're asking for the $4,000 increase in the mental health valuation is we have seen a significance, as you can see, it's reflected in the as of 626 number. When you have individuals who there's bona fide doubt as to their fitness and things of that nature, there needs to be these evaluations beforehand. We're seeing an uptick in regards to individuals and costs associated with that. So that's why there was the additional $4,000 request there. And the interpreter, a transcript expert witness, as you can see, in many years, we don't come anywhere near that, but that's something that's periodically, it becomes a substantial hit. Fortunately, the interpreter part, not so much, because the AOIC actually has a contract with Lingo, and they reimburse the fees for that. However, we have rare circumstances. Just in this last year, I can think of one where we had an individual who was both deaf and mute, and we needed a special interpreter for their services for what was happening, and so that would come in there. And then also when we get into expert witnesses where there's somebody who qualifies or is indigent on there, that will be a substantial fee. So that's why they leave the budget kind of higher on that as a request. But obviously hoping that most years we don't hit that. Advertising and publishing has been mentioned other times tonight. With those increase in the people who do qualify for fee waivers, we are seeing increases in those costs that are then being borne out here, and so that was the $2,000 increase. So there were just the two increases on there, totaling $6,000. And then finally, in regards to 808 in the law library, research services, that's the West Law. And that also goes for the judges, the state's attorney, and the public defender's office. The increase in regards to that is the amount that actually was going to be increased by Westlaw anyway, year over year. However, we were able to change the subscription service to where we actually were getting for the same amount that they were going to charge us for the old platform that we were using. They upgraded us to a higher platform that also had generative AI in regards to the query searches, which the state attorney's office and public defender's office can testify to substantially reduces some of the initial research time that is spent and helps get them more targeted towards the issues that they're looking to research on there. So, what's that? Oh, and Westlaw is a legal legal services, legal research services on there. So you go on in and you're looking up a certain issue, and that's there's two large service providers, but Westlaw is the one that we've used for as long as I, have been here, and in any capacity. So going back, 15 years here. So the cost increase on that actually was, the cost increase that we were going to be bearing anyway. And I feel like, and I think the other departments would also, back up, we were able to get an increase in the quality of services without having an increase in the cost of what was already going to be, borne out. So with that, is there any questions?
I got a couple
Yes,
of
we have.
follow up with, on advertisement and publishment, is that where we use the local newspaper or? And what would we use that for? I mean,
There's, a publication, and this is what you can do it too, because you guys do the lists on there. JAs, abuse and neglect cases, JD cases where you have, JA case, for instance, where it's an unknown father or there's not a parent that's, listed on there. You need to give notice, that this case is pending. Now, obviously, practically, how many times does someone come in and say, I saw a publication? Doesn't happen a lot, but, for the idea of people should be entitled to notice. If we're not going to be able to say that, okay, we know that, Mr. Smith is the father and we're going to personally serve him with the sheriff, we need to say, okay, there's some mechanism whereby we can say, we attempted to get a hold of anybody who may be interested in this case.
and and you have a same thing too, publishing and advertisement in your budget. I didn't.
We do, it's called publishing, but we really don't have any publishing costs, to be honest with you.
Yeah, who do
That's
we
my
use?
only-
Who do we put those published notices with? And do we use the local Journal Standard or?
We do, we go through statewide as publishing.
Okay,
They're a company and then they do it all with the newspaper and we're supposed to get a better rate. But it is in the Journal Standard.
so we use the Journal Standard for that.
Because
then.
it has to be, a publication that's in general circulation in the jurisdiction, which, you have, because obviously.
Yeah.
It's not, no.
Yeah, yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I'm familiar with the law. It has to be with the one that has the most publication that you would advertise. But I know that there's been some state bills that have been going through to try to cut back on that and post things on your local website, to say, because the county spends, the county clerk and the treasurer spend a lot of money on that kind of stuff. But, no, and then on the mental health thing, yeah, it's getting to be a big problem with, I can see why the increase. The 56,000 you're budgeting, I guess my question to you, George, all this money comes from the general fund to support these expenses, or does it come from somewhere?
They're all general fund, I believe. This is the right one I'm looking at.
Yes.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah,
think?
they're all in.
So the interpreter and translator 56,000, you think we'll ever get to that kind of amount of money, or?
I've been told, when Judge Hauser, I remember Judge Ball mentioned in the past, these are, it depends. I mean, you get a, let's say that murder case on there, and then suddenly we have a situation where we're dealing with an expert witness. Attorney Larson, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, we've got one cooking right now where, and the defense, not represented by the public defender, but still indigent, has gotten an order for, I think, $20,000 for an expert.
Mhm.
And it's an issue of a young child who died, and we feel it was first degree murder, but the defense feels that it's a congenital heart defect. And so they're hiring cardiologists, and eventually we're gonna have to hire, or we won't have to hire a cardiologist. Cardiologists have already worked on this for us, but we're gonna have to fly one back from Alaska. Because there was, the woman who looked at the materials for us at the time was at the University of Wisconsin, where she specialized in child abuse cases. Since then, she's moved to Alaska, so we're gonna have to pay her and she's gonna have to come back. I mean, it's going to be expensive.
So all that would come out of the 56,000.
I hope so.
It's one of those things, doesn't always come up, but when it does, it's
Yeah.
a big hit. And so the past history has been, put it in there knowing that it may not come up, but when it does, it's rather than coming back and saying, we were 50,000 over because, by the way, this was the year that it hit.
Yeah, well, thank you.
If I remember correctly, I could go back and look at the budget notes, but Judge Ball knew this one was brewing, and that was the significant increase a few years back, because
Okay,
he wasn't quite sure what year it would
But he
hit,
knew it
but
was
he knew it was coming and knew the in-depth.
well, thank you, Mr. Larson, for that explanation. Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have.
And if I could add for some of the funds, and I don't know how it all breaks down, but in the civil filing fees, we take $20 that goes to the law library. And then there's like a court line, $80. It depends on what filing fee they pay. But again, if they get a waiver, that's one of the things that is waived. So there is some money that we do collect that just gets thrown in the general fund, but it's,
That's for the law library, you said, or for?
yeah, there's law library and then there's court.
Okay,
So I assume that's judicial.
Thank you. Well, I have a couple of questions. The first one is, going back to the advertising, not the advertising, the interpreter, transcripts, and expert witness. $56,000 was budgeted. It looks like we're on target to use $8,000 maybe. We're looking for 56 again. Year prior to that was 1,800, 7,100. That seems to be a lot of excess capacity.
If I could just,
Please.
Judge Ball knew that the case that they were just discussing was coming up
Oh, for this. So
for
there-
last year, which is why it jumped significantly.
Right.
That case has not come to fruition so far this year, which is why it's included in the budget.
I mean, there's a
moving forward.
court order right now that the
Mhm.
county's gonna pay 20 grand for the defense experts. It just, we haven't gotten any bills yet.
Gotcha.
So,
So you're already at half of the amounts.
Right.
that's being budgeted
Right.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. That's why, thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I was questioning that. And I would think that that's probably going to become increasingly a significant expense in terms of not just expert witness, but for translation as well, which
well,
is a lot less expensive, but.
yeah, I mean, we have been having a lot of I'm sorry, I don't mean to,
You want to start?
a lot of translators, and they've been in-person translators, which really has been excellent. It's better for the person who's being translated
Oh, sure.
to. It's better for us because they just do it real time. Like, we talk slow, we talk clear, but you just go.
Right.
As opposed to the kind of legal line where you say something, you wait a minute, then you say something, you wait a minute. But hopefully, this case, the one case that we have, it's the only case like that I've ever seen in 19 years. So hopefully that's not a reoccurring or common thing, but
Mhm.
it is a situation we're dealing with right now.
And down the road, the interpreter might, as I was indicating at the beginning, the interpreter used to be something that was more of an expense now for the county. But now,
Mhm.
the vast majority of the interpreter fees are being paid through a contract with AOIC and in lingo. So AOIC's picking it up. But it's still interpreter, transcript, and expert witnesses. That's kind of been the largest part.
Okay. And then my second question was going back down to the research services in Westlaw. That's not an expense item that's in anyone else's budget then?
It is not.
Okay, so this is for the judges, the state's attorney and the PD.
That's
So
right.
it's aggregated here.
That's correct. And we actually get, we get monthly, it tells us kind of usage reports.
Right.
Overall, 3 of the offices. And also, cost if it was outside of just the subscription pack.
And you guys take a look at that every now and then as to provider. I mean, who's the other major? Is it Lexis next?
Exactly. Westlaw.
Mhm.
Plus, it's, those are the only 2 real games in town.
Mhm.
And Westlaw is the one that the vast majority of the individuals who work in
Right.
those departments are used to. And so,
Seems like it's easier to read.
Even going back to law school, I prefer what's one, what's next.
Yeah.
But, we had access to both amendments.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Probation.
All right, so, Ms. McGee is leaving this in my hands, so hopefully I don't mess this up too much for her. I'll look at the, general fund one first, so that would be the budget that starts out with the 001, indicating it's the general fund line item. The first thing we talked about is changing the title to take off the service fees, because I think that's confusing, because the probation service fees is actually what is the standalone fund, that is the money that is dictated through statute of what it can be used for. So Adrian and I talked about that. There's something with the software. We're not sure we can do it completely, but we can do it at least during budget presentations and the way it would be, looked at, so it's less confusing moving forward. But if we go down line by line, the department head salary is a 6% increase for the chief judge. They have a management compensation schedule that is followed. And the other increases outside of what our budget policy is contractual. The secretary support staff would be the COLA per budget policy. And the last one, which is highlighted in yellow, is the office manager salary, which is the 4%, but there was not a catch once she changed that position title, so she wants to change that to operations manager as opposed to office manager. The other two lines are the ones that are highlighted in red are, computer software and medical and dental are lines that have not been used for the last 4 years, I believe, 3-4 years. So the increases, slight photocopies, just with the cost of increase in things. That's the explanation she gave for the other increases. So.
But yes,
Bonuses, are bonuses part of the union contract?
They are. They're performance based.
anyone else?
Yes, follow up, juvenile detention, just kind of looking at it, in 2021, it was 127,000, 46, 2023, 90. We budgeted 125, we used about 35,000. And we're budgeting 130, so we're up 5,000 more. Is there a reason why she's increasing that one by 5,000?
I don't want to speak for her, but I know she said the other slight increases were cost increases associated with the service. So I can't speak to the detention line.
Okay,
I do know
100%, but
that we've been using detention more of the past 2 months. That is not listed as of June. So like if you looked at the claims in July, there was a substantial amount for King County Detention Center.
I remember when I first came on the board, we used to have huge problems. We didn't even have enough money, and we had to budget a little more money into juvenile detention all the time.
we were always over budget.
Yeah, all the time back in those days.
I think Hart has the bills. I think you wanted to look at them. Is that what you're looking?
Yeah, we look, do you have the claims?
I have not been given them back.
Jim, you still have the claims over?
I do not.
I haven't
Yeah.
Did I set them? I might have.
We
I
just,
just knew
I
because
think we just saved some money.
You
There was like 69 days in juvenile detention center for that particular bill, just more than.
I know we've been kind of averaging like one a month,
Yeah, there
maybe.
was more this last.
Really? Yeah, well,
So 69 days would be.
you were juvenile officer for quite a few years.
The last number of years of my career down there, yeah.
So you remember the days
Oh,
that
yeah, yeah.
we had to find money to put in there, you know.
You
It
would
wasn't
have
an
4
easy
or
job.
5 people in at a time.
You were a juvenile offender, weren't you?
Yeah, so for June, there was 12,000 on
Okay,
this claim, so.
okay.
When you do have them, it's hard.
It's better to have the money in there than try to go look for the money because.
You're welcome.
The big bites
I
are
would
when
believe it.
a juvenile gets transferred to adult court. Because then they can be in juvenile detention for a year and a half, and every day is, used to be 125, I don't know what it is now, $150, something like that.
Why can they be so long? I missed the beginning.
When they're juveniles tried as adults.
Oh, I
And
see.
in particular, several years back, they changed the age of minority from 17 to 18.
Mhm.
And, you know, an 18-year-old commits different crimes than a 14-year-old.
Sure.
And, you know, some of those are excluded from juvenile court,
Mhm.
and some are discretionary, permissive, or mandatory transfers. And when you get one of those, then they get into adult court.
Right.
Now it's adult court penalties.
Yeah.
So everything moves a lot slower
Mhm.
than in juvenile court. And you just end up with somebody in there for, it can be 18 months sometimes, which
Wow.
is an enormous expense.
Mhm.
And,
Thank
you know, once they turn 18, we get them out of there that day, but until they're 18, they're just in there racking up
Right.
the bill.
Well, you don't want a 16-year-old in regular population either. That's
You can't, it's illegal. They
I
have
know.
to be out of sight and sound of
Right.
They
adults.
changed it from
They
17
changed
to
it.
18.
right. Right.
Georgia, maybe you can answer this question. So if we got 4 there, is that going to increase the sheriff having to get the people over here, or does Kane, we have a contract that Kane County brings them over?
It's a sheriff's department.
Sheriff's
still.
So that'll be, and that's because they'll have to send 2.
Could you, yeah, I don't know if they would send the bus. I know we had, this Monday, we've got 2 coming. One was in the afternoon, one was in the morning. We moved them both to the morning so that it would be just one trip, but.
Yeah. Yep, that's all I got. Mr. Bush, thank you.
I have one more question. The 18,000 bonus, who does that apply to?
So all probation officers can get a bonus through the collective bargaining agreement, which if you want to look at is online. You can see the parameters are spelled out in the collective bargaining agreement. It's performance-based depending on their evaluation.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anything else?
Not for that one. We can move on to the Fund 21. This is the actual probation service fees. So this revenue, this fund is a standalone fund. It's not dependent on the general fund. So the revenues that are collected through fees. The expenses are dictated through statute. So there are certain things that just cannot be paid for with this, but they do try to use what they can use it for to pay. She's got a number of lines highlighted in red to deactivate. The yellow one, the advocacy prevention program, she would like to change to client services because they are offering a lot more services than just advocacy and prevention. She thought that was a better descriptive of that. If you notice the green line that says add new interest expense line, if you recall last year through the budget process, a supplemental request was approved for the purchase of a vehicle for the probation department. That would have been approximately a $30,000 ask of the general fund. Dr. McGee was able to work with the treasurer's office and our office, and it was determined that interest that had been earned on the probation service fees account could cover the cost of that vehicle. So even though it was approved to be paid through the general fund, she used the interest income because that portion is not dictated by statute. So based on the interest that has been earned on that account, she would like to bring that $40,000 into the budget so that she can spend it on expenses and not have to request supplementals that would tax the general fund.
Yes, go ahead.
And that would be okay with who supervises probation service fee?
AOI.
Because I thought they're okay with that being in the budget when we,
Yes.
because I'm sure that's submitted to them.
It is submitted to them, and she actually, I know you guys spoke about just discussing budgets. She did have an ask that she has to turn her annual plan in by the end of July, and was hoping that there could at least be a committee approval of the Fund 20 budget so that she could say it was approved at the committee level in that annual plan. But yes, she worked on, after we figured it out on our end, she worked with Ms. Brandenburg, and that was the recommendation to allow her to be able to use it in a transparent way.
That was the vehicle purchase last year.
Last year, she was able to use interest income to purchase the vehicle so that she did not have to, last year, this fiscal year.
2024.
Correct. So that it wasn't paid for out of the general.
And
Um,
that's already, we already did that.
Correct.
And so if we put it in the 2025, what would we be utilizing?
She had a
for?
plan to replace a number of desks, workstations. The desks that are in her office are original desks from the courthouse in most of the client offices.
Mhm.
Or hand-me-downs from other departments. I know she talked about new chairs for a number of the officers, as a couple of them have broke and they've piecemealed them along. Of course, all those would be approved through claims, and you would see what it was spent on.
Mhm.
I don't know that she had a formal plan. The things that she discussed with us were desks, chairs,
So the
things
vehicle,
that she couldn't spend probation service fees on and would be asking for in a supplemental. Could be requested.
so the vehicle is an example. The vehicle is not what's involved here. Is 40,000.
Not for
Example.
2025. No.
Not for 2025. So this is $40,000 of that interest that would otherwise normally be in the general. It's been, say it again.
It's been unaccessed. It's been just building the probation service fee fund.
Okay, so it's been in that fund,
Correct.
retained.
Correct.
And we'd still be retaining it in that fund, is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so this is just a request for $40,000 that we'd be approving for whatever she may want to use it for in the
It's
future?
moving the interest into the budget.
Okay,
Before it was unallocated.
Allocate it. Correct.
okay, thank you.
And I just, as far as Dr. McGee's request, for those who haven't gone through this, but the probation service fees are totally separate from any fund, like county funds.
Right.
So it won't affect our overall budget. So I would personally be okay with us approving this one fund.
It's a standalone fund. Correct. And she did say she has no intention of submitting any supplemental requests if it.
So you're gonna need a motion and second.
Make a motion.
Moved by Ms. Anthony,
Second.
second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Anything else?
Youth diversion, we already did.
Yeah, we did that.
That.
We did that.
No, did we do the public defender or?
Yeah, no,
No, we didn't
no,
go
we
through
did,
his
no, we did,
budget.
no, we did.
He said that he would come next month.
But he did, but we need to talk about the supplemental. But I guess we can hold off until next month
Yeah,
on that. And all we do on that is kind of prioritize which one is,
Once the budget's passed.
Mr. Bush, did you go over the public defender's budget within that office?
yeah, did he,
Curious
well,
what the
he
gym,
did,
gym
they
membership
did,
new line item is?
they did, talk about that, it was pretty much status quo.
There's a new line item for gym membership.
Gym membership, yeah.
Which is is that the supplemental?
That's gonna be a supplemental. 'Cause I did talk to Andrew today about that, wondering, should that be a line item added to the budget, or should that be a supplemental? And she said that should be a supplemental.
Okay.
But I do have another question concerning that as well, but I'll wait. Okay, if there's not anything else, any public comment? If not, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
So
Been moved by Ms. Anthony. Seconded by Mr. Bush. All in favor?
alright.
All opposed?
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hey, Bill.
Yep.
This is